everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. On this episode of the Jam Yearbook, we're going to bring you all the best music we found exploring the month of April 2024.
Each month, we add new songs to our Spotify playlist. New music, the Jam Yearbook discovers.
Discover.
It's a revolving playlist of new songs from the past few months that we've talked about on the show. So take the time, go check it out. There's a lot of great music there.
Before we roll too deep into the music, let's get the Reaper out of the way. Jim, who did we lose in April?
Well, it wasn't until you put his name in the notes that I discovered that we've lost Dickie Betts.
Yeah, it was a shocker, huh?
Yeah, I needed a moment when I found that out.
It was kind of unceremoniously that I found out, too.
Yeah, I thought it would be a bigger deal. I've never been a huge jam band guy, and I can probably only name 3 Allman Brothers songs, maybe. Like Melissa.
Yeah, but it's Dickie friggin'
It
Betts
is.
here.
And I enjoy every moment that I've heard him play guitar. I brought the song Dickie Betts by the Dean Wing Group to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just love that tribute in that song. He was the quintessential sideman for that 70s Southern rock sound.
And then someone who I was surprised was still alive, Dwayne Eddy. And surprisingly, only 6 years older than Dickie Betts. He was known for that signature twangy guitar sound and his best hit, Peter Gunn. He was never happy with his voice, and that led him to use those lower strings on the guitar to mimic the vocal melody in his music. And it paid off. That was his signature style.
Yeah, I'm with you. When I found out that he died, I was like, whoa, Dwayne Eddy's still around.
Yeah. And only 86.
Wow.
What is going on there?
Wow. But then we have some birthdays. So why don't you start off with who is celebrating or who did celebrate their birthday in the month of April?
All right. We got Susan Boyle, Kelly Clarkson, Sebastian Bach, Agnetha Faltskog, pardon my pronunciation, and Bjorn Ulvaeus, both from ABBA, and John Oates.
And someone who I always wanted to touch me, Samantha Fox. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Victoria Beckham, Robert Smith.
Again,
yeah, keep your distance.
Probably someone.
Peter Frampton, Eddie Murphy, and Wayne Newton.
And continuing on, happy birthday to Clive Davis, Pharrell Williams, Julian Lennon, Babyface, Vince Gill, and Herbie Hancock.
And we have David Cassidy, Al Green, Max Weinberg, Chris Stapleton, Chance the Rapper, and Jan Hammer.
Our last round of birthdays go out to Iggy Pop, Roger Taylor of Duran Duran, not Queen, Sheena Easton, Ace Frehley, Kate Pearson from the B-52s, and Willie Nelson. And then we had some albums celebrating birthdays. We had 30-year anniversary to Lives Throwing Copper.
Yep.
And then 35 years was The Cult, Sonic Temple, Great White, Twice Shy, and the Pixies, Doolittle, and Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever.
We have had 40 years of REM with their debut Reckoning. 45 years, 1979, Simple Minds, Life in a Day debut. And 1974, 50 years old in April, Leonard Skinner's Second Helping. That album had Sweet Home Alabama, Don't Ask Me No Questions, Call Me the Breeze.
And then finally, for 60 years, we had the Rolling Stones UK debut.
60 years. That's absolutely bonkers. And
hey, we're still younger than that album.
And they're still touring. It's 60 years later. They're still on the road.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Wow. All right. Let's get a move on with the show and start talking about music.
Yeah, because the Rolling Stones aren't the only ones still around. Jim, Prince has a new song, or a couple at least.
Matt, I mean, like, he's kind of still around. I mean, according to what I've heard, he has in the vaults, he could be around for a really long, long time.
Such disrespect. You're right, though. It's hard to think this is going to be the last posthumous release we get from Prince. 2 of those songs came out in April, United States of Division and Magnificent. They're not from the scrap heap, though. They're out to celebrate the 20th anniversary of his Musicology album. They haven't been available on streaming services until now, though.
Yep.
And then probably I don't even know why we're bringing this band up, probably because it was more of an amusement to see that Collective Soul just put out another album. Jim, you know that song they do? It starts out with a lone guitar playing a riff, then the whole band kicks in. You know, every damn song that they do. I mean, they do have some songs off a couple albums that I like, but their songwriting formula is stale, to put it mildly.
Yeah, I think you're more forgiving of them than I am. When I saw them in the notes, I actually think I put them into our little playlist of music. I found it first and bumped it over there, but I was going to just
Oh,
let that fly by. They're a one-hit wonder band to me, and that song "Shine" obviously had borrowed from the Smashing Pumpkins' "Drown." Billy Corgan actually ranted about this on the stage back in 1993, 94. Uh, but to be honest, I mean, I don't hate that song, but I think they were always kind of fake grunge to me.
yeah, they're from Georgia, but I think they were more than happy to lean into that misconception. Because grunge was king. Hey, we want to sell some records. Let's put a vague cover on the back of the album that makes us kind of tie us in with grunge. Um, this is an example of talking about the rest. It certainly is not the best of music released in April, but I do have one amusing anecdote
Okay.
about that song.
Okay.
The one that goes, yeah.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah. Ed ended up singing it through a roll of toilet paper.
Hey, I sang a part of a song on the Cinderblock Baby album through a vacuum cleaner hose. So
You copied.
I,
No,
I, yeah, I didn't know
I
that
would
was
never say
happening.
that. I would never say that.
I appreciate it. Well, hey, you know what? Let's talk about guys from the grunge era that were awesome. And they did something that we were really impressed with. This is Pearl Jam, and the album is Dark Matter. This album could be the star of the show for me. I didn't know that Pearl Jam still had this in them. This was exactly the album I wish I had had after Versus in 1994 and not Vitology. It's a patchwork of musical influences, but it still flows pretty well from beginning to end. Tom Petty is really obvious as one of those influences in it, but you can also pick out the nods to The Cure, U2, and even Stevie Ray Vaughan and Mike McCready's guitar work. This is one of those albums that we talk about on the show that's not going to get left behind in 2024 for me.
Yeah, I spent way too many years trying to convince myself that Vitology was a good album. Sorry if anyone out there is a fan, but that did not have a good flow to it. But everything on Dark Matter makes sense and it feels comfortable on that first listen. I'm not saying it's boring, but there's no break-in period. I mean, songs immediately grabbed my attention. I loved it right away. This might be the closest we've come to a listening party too, because we were listening at the same time and just pinging each other left and right with comments. It's like, oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah, oh no, I heard that.
Yeah, we were excited for it. And it's not to say that there weren't good songs on Vitology, but you're right. It just didn't flow. It didn't have that feel. And this is the first album of theirs that I've listened to since Versus. And I've tried them. I know a lot of people like Yield. I know they've had a lot of positive reaction to some of their more recent albums in the past 10 years. And I like Eddie's solo album and I like his ukulele album. But this was like the return of Pearl Jam to me. Those sing along songs that you're going to go and
Mm-hmm.
see them at an arena, at a stadium, and they're going to dominate the night. This is an album that they've made where they're not going to have to go out and rely on everybody just standing around waiting to hear songs off of 10 anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Jeremy, stop playing this new crap. Jeremy.
They actually released their first tour set list last week on their first gig, and I don't think they played Alive or Jeremy at the show. They
Really?
did play Porch and they played Wash and Garden and they played some songs off of Vitology and some songs off of Verses, but they played, I want to say, 6 to 8 songs off this new album. And it
Nice.
it still looked like a great set list. They played I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty. They played Chloe Dancer Crown of Thorns by Mother Love Bone. That's the Pearl Jam concert I want to go see.
Yeah, those are the Easter eggs that you want to get.
Yeah. They played Rockin' in a Free World. Come on, that's
Well, of course. Come
yeah.
on. They're going to play that
They
song.
haven't done that in years though. So
Oh, really?
yeah, you can tell they've got a new energy that's come out of this album. And I'm excited to see the effect that it has after this tour. I really hope people pick it up and yeah, enjoy it as much as we did.
Well, I'm hearing it during sporting events
Yep.
right now. When they break away to a commercial, I hear Dark Matter.
Yeah, it's getting
So
some play.
yes, it is. In 1983 is still around, Jim. They said, don't forget about me because we had a couple special releases of older favorites. Billy Idol came out with an expanded edition of Rebel Yell. nothing different on disc one. It's just the straight album. But disc two, that's where you get all the demos and the takes plus two unreleased songs. Best Way Out of Here and Love Don't Live Here Anymore. First one, eh, Ladder, that was a really good song. There's no big wow moment of how they got from A to B, but it's interesting to hear what songs evolved from, and they're different enough where you won't feel like you wasted your time. There is an Eyes Without a Face remix, that's a little on the why bother side.
I checked out the Love Don't Live Here Anymore song, and it wasn't terrible. It was pretty good, but I could kind of understand why it didn't make the album. It had a lack of energy. It could have been a single. That's what, he had that greatest hits album that came out a few years
Hmm.
later with Money Money, and it would have been a good single to be on that. And I think Billy Idol had some great music in the moment, but I think one of the tougher experiences I have now going back and listening is it's completely based on nostalgia. I don't really see Billy Idol having influenced the future of music in any way.
I would agree with that. I don't hear a lot of Billy Idol copycats. I actually can't even think of one. Maybe in the moment he did. But I mean, you can't take away how big of a hit Rebel Yell was. That was a
No, it was,
huge album.
yep, yep. And maybe that's actually the compliment that he doesn't have copycats. That could actually be,
Yeah,
it's someone who's difficult to improve upon or copy. So yeah.
yeah, because he had a distinct image,
Mhm.
and hey, it's pretty easy to tell. I mean, look what people did to Scott Weiland when he was, accused of ripping off Eddie Vedder.
I know this sounds crazy, but I think probably as close as somebody's come to at least an appearance seeming like Billy Idol's Pink. I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think.
No, no, and they're both kind of aping on John Lydon too, aren't they?
Yeah,
Johnny Rotten. So,
yeah.
okay, another one from '83 is Def Leppard's. They got a super deluxe edition of Pyromania, 4 discs, which yikes. In this age of streaming, I don't think disc count matters. Or maybe we can call it the age of content. I'm here for the demos, just out of curiosity. I didn't hear anything special or that was an Easter egg for future songs. Maybe a second or two sparingly. The rough mixes are a misnomer. They aren't rough at all. If anything, they're a little bit cleaner, actually a lot cleaner, because Joe Elliott's voice really sticks out a lot more. If I had one complaint about that album, besides the fake drums, is a lot of echo, but that was kind of par for the course back then. Some of the flourishes aren't as polished as well, but the songs were intact. They just, again, they all had that less reverb that the official release had. And the other two are just live discs if you're into that kind of thing.
I tried to dig into this and I didn't get very far. I like Pyromania. I think it's a great album. But I found it interesting that a lot of the tracks were like a minute and a half of let's try this riff, let's try that riff. And it was almost
Yeah.
like demos that you might cut from bandmate to the other to see, hey, I'm gonna, sit down and listen to this. Do you want to make a song out of this? Nope. Okay. Do you want to,
Yeah.
yeah, here's another one. Do you want to do a song out of this? And it's kind of cool that that's there, but I don't know maybe if it's explained well enough that that's really just an exploration of the creative process more than songs they were intending to put out. Because when I
And
hear
that's another
demo,
victim of the streaming age because you're not going to get the liner notes.
yeah, when I hear demo, I want to actually hear, a rough version of a 3-minute song that they decided not to really professionally record. Not
Yeah.
not 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different guitar riffs that never wound up in anything.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where you're going to go for it. You got to go for the curiosity factor. You're not going to find something that's going to end up on a playlist of yours.
No, but if you're a guitar player out there looking for something to steal, they've got a several here that you can probably go take a look at, and nobody's going to know. So have at it.
Exactly.
And even though it's celebrating its 41st anniversary, look at the albums we've talked about that are already hit on that celebrating their 40th anniversary. We'll probably get a few more of those this year before it's
Tons.
out because kids, that's how you make money. I suspect we've heard the best from most of these bands in their 25, 30, 35-year anniversaries that have all passed. And I know from experiences, you can walk away from a studio with a dozen takes on a song easily. So bands can keep doing this over and over again.
Yep. Just take that lesson that Paul McCartney gave to Michael Jackson. Publishing rights. Get them.
Go get them.
All right. I see what's coming up in the notes, and it is rant time again. because Jim was made for this thing lately. It's the album that millions have gone nuts for. Emo Swift's Tortured Poets Department. To be honest, I'm not even sure why we even need to talk about it. I mean, we defended her, acknowledged a level of respect, plus we've let our challenges be known. Maybe it's because it's the popular thing to have an opinion about. I'll be honest. Again, I'm treading on thin ice here. Couple Taylor Swift fans in the house. I don't want them or anyone to think that what I'm going to say is my absolute opinion of her. So I'm going to let Jim take the heat. Take it away, Jim.
Hey, first and foremost, I'm the guy who actually bended Matt's here to Taylor Swift in the first place and said, wait a minute, we need to listen to this. And I think I helped you appreciate some of her music. At least I hope I did, because I decided that we probably weren't taking the time. And I know that you enjoyed her stuff that she did with Bon Iver when she did the folklore album.
Yeah, and I will admit that when people want to pile on somebody like Beyonce
Yeah.
for the country album, I
The
kind of
gym,
want to poke
the last show.
I kind of I kind of want to poke back at those people and say, don't be so absolutist.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Emo Swift, I like that label. Tortured Poets Department. This album sounds like her song All Too Well, which I loved over and over and over and over and over again. We have come to the defense of Taylor Swift on the previous episodes, as you said, and we have openly admitted to recognizing how talented she is and how she has written some really good songs. But it's like the balloon's been deflated. Suddenly, all of the fun is gone. There are so many songs on this album where it sounds like she's just quoting an unedited journal of her recent breakups and sharing more than we need to know. You've brought that up before with her oversharing. And
Yeah, she could have just called this Dear Diary.
yeah, she seems really happy with her current partner, Travis Kelce, the American football player for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he seems like a cool guy. Can you imagine dating someone and 6 months in, she releases an album about how much she loved her ex? I could probably handle it for a song or two. And I understand this is a career and a business, but this album is relentless. And it even has a song or two about her 2 week flings and that fleeting feeling that people have when they get caught up in something.
I will say though, I'll defend her a little bit in that saying, these songs could have been written and partly recorded before they even started dating. And she could have given him a heads up about, hey, I'm going to release this song.
Well, yeah, but I agree with that. But does Taylor Swift have to release everything she writes and records? She's touring right now.
Did she have to make a 10-minute version of All Too Well and say every thought that came to her head?
Well,
No, she should have saved them and said, hey, tonight I'm going to do these lyrics.
well,
Tonight I'm going to do these
and
lyrics.
that's what this album is.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Yeah.
here's the thing, Taylor. You've written some happy songs in the past. Where are those now? This is not Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. Even Dylan knew not to overwrite the lyrics sometimes or even add Hurricane as a track in the middle of his album about his divorce. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to tell a woman she's prettier when she smiles, but I dare ask Taylor here and now to try and write something that's upbeat again, please, or have a feud with a fellow pop star so we can get another Bad Blood. But these songs of lament and colloquialisms are not Dylan-esque. And you've reached the end of the road for me. Cheers, Taylor. Like I said, I like All Too Well. I think it was a masterpiece that she wrote years ago, and it gained steam. It got her more attention when she released the long version. But on this album, she's trying to do it song after song. And for me, it's failed. And Jack Antonoff, jump ship. Several albums and years together have drained that collaborative well. It's time for you to move on, buddy.
And we've left Aaron Dessner out of this. His band, The National, isn't exactly on everyone's lips, and he's had just as much involvement in the writing and production on her last few albums as Antonoff. And The National is not happy fun time music.
No, but Matt, hold on, because I haven't even started my rant yet. That's just my review of Taylor's album.
Part duh. Okay, yeah, let's go.
People need to stop celebrating Taylor Swift, or anyone for that matter, for charting these days. Until the digital age, charts were based on radio requests and airplay and album sales. Throwing streaming into the mix, is like putting charting on steroids. You have a bunch of the same fans streaming a song or an album over and over again. This is not equivalent to the massive album sales we saw or the Billboard Top 100 when it was based on radio requests. Do you know when you adjust inflation, the highest grossing film of all time is still Gone with the Wind? Star Wars, E.T., Dr. Zhivago, and the Ten Commandments are still in the top 10 when you adjust inflation. But if you go look at that list now, Avengers Endgame is in the
Yeah.
top 10. Obviously, the Avatar is still actually in both. But you have movies that were cool. It doesn't mean they can't still be part of a celebration for success, but they are not bigger than those movies that might have come out 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And Taylor Swift is championing breaking records that the Beatles held. And I don't think this is apples and apples. This is apples and oranges. You cannot compare it because what the Beatles did to get all of their songs that they did in the top 10, a band that could even just hold the top five, that is a feat. But now Taylor Swift says, you know what? I'm going to drop my entire album at one time, no advanced singles. Nobody's going to hear anything. And all of a sudden, it's going to drop on a Friday afternoon the way I want it to happen. And my fans are going to go and listen to this album over and over and over and over again. And it's going to make these songs all chart in the top 10. I'll wrap my rant up here quickly. I think Matt's ready to get up and go.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All of these chart records being broken in the streaming age don't match the charts we grew up with. Streaming has become modern inflation.
Bravo. Because I kind of agree, but at the same point, I'll still defend Taylor because ultimately she's putting out music that I would rather listen to than say Dua Lipa, right? If I had to choose something in the pop vein, even though Taylor is kind of emo and indie right now.
Mm-hmm.
I tapped out pretty early on this album. I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. But then I lost track of, wait, when did that song end? When did this one begin? And I'm not emotionally invested in the music. So that's also shading my opinion. I also felt like I had already made up my mind going in on that title, what I'm going to get. And it's a double album. It's like, I just didn't need that for myself at all. But I will say, yeah, we've defended her and praised her talent and whatever. But I also say that you can't discount there's a pretty high level of intelligence here in how she's going about her business and what she's done. She's kind of on the right side of the fence with, registering people to vote and all of that thing. She's doing good things. It's just that I fear everything's going to crash when it gets that big, right? And she's not helping herself out
Yeah. Yep.
in that regard.
That bubble's going to burst.
All right, let's move on from the heavy and have a laugh at my expense. How about we do that?
Okay. I'm
We
happy to
haven't
do
done that in
that.
nearly 5 minutes. Okay. I guess we could call this How Matt Was Duped and Made a Fool of, if that's what you're interested in. If everyone wants to stop, go back and listen to our February recap. We'll wait. We'll be right here when you get back. One of my new discoveries, and I was pretty excited about it, was Conan Gray. He had a few singles out. I really dug him. Well, come April, he dropped the whole album, Found Heaven. And I'm not going to reverse course on the songs that I found. I still like them. This fact is probably shading my opinion
Okay, come on.
because,
Out with it. I can tell
all
you're
right,
avoiding something.
I really am. Max Martin produced this motherfucker. All the ranting we've done about him.
That's great. Hey,
Oh
I
boy.
liked it too. And we have ranted a lot about Max Martin, but you have
Yes.
to admit he has suckered us in more than once before.
Yeah, he is very artful in his sucker punching.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. He got you right between the eyes this time.
Oh, here we go. I'm going to trigger you now.
Uh-oh.
Did Neil Young come back to Spotify because he's got a new album out?
Oh, you're looking to double dip into Jim ranting, aren't you?
Yes, I
But
am.
I think maybe you have some kind of sneaky appreciation for how I've been taking this role over more recently.
Takes the heat off me, man.
But since you brought this up, everybody, Matt, get ready for the next few minutes of heavy breathing from me.
Whoa, hey.
Yeah, yeah. Let me get my soapbox out. During the COVID period, Joe Rogan brought people to his podcast who disagreed with the government guidelines and had controversial theories about what had been taking place. I'm not going to take a side here or get us into politics because that's not what this show's about. Joe Rogan had an exclusive Spotify contract. So a handful of artists, including Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, decided to remove their music from Spotify in protest. Neil Young, although he kept his music on other streaming platforms, criticized the sound quality that people got from streaming. Here's the thing: Joe Rogan's contract ended, and within a month, both Neil Young and Joni Mitchell announced their return. For me, it's obvious that it was due to exposure to a new audience and money because they suddenly had lost the audience. I think it was something like, what was it? 30-40% of all streamers listen to Spotify. So that's a massive audience that they lost.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as audio goes, both are from an era where you could buy vinyl or an 8 track or vinyl or cassette or CD. I'll give
Yes.
you a CD, but 8 track and cassette quality music is horrible. And
Yeah. There's always higher and lower forms of audio
there,
quality.
there are, and most streaming bit rates can actually sound better than that if you want.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and don't forget Napster too. You can get some pretty bad sounding stuff on
Yeah,
there,
we definitely got a lot
or
of
used
bad
to.
stuff from there. So I think this boycott was more of a promotional stunt. If you didn't agree with Joe Rogan's guests, fine. But if this was some kind of attempt to collapse Spotify as a boycott would attempt, he failed. Spotify might not be the best platform in the world and has its own questionable practices beyond Neil Young and what happened, but it became pretty obvious to me how quickly he came back that Neil Young needs Spotify more than Spotify needs Neil Young in order for that legacy to remain. And I'm off the soapbox.
And you're off. And yeah, you can't discount that they had new shit coming out. And so didn't he try to start his own streaming service?
I don't remember. I didn't pay that close attention to it, but maybe I
Yeah,
didn't
I
see it
didn't
over
either.
here. Neil
I thought it
Young,
was just grumpy old man.
Neil Young is known over here, but I don't know if he's big enough that that would make the news here.
Yeah,
So
probably
it
not.
wouldn't surprise me. Neil Young's tried to dabble in different aspects of technology in his career, but I just, yeah, you're right. He had a new album coming out, and it's a new album with Crazy Horse, and they needed to be able to reach as many people as possible. And I'm sure that there are a lot. When I found out Neil Young was back on Spotify, I had a Neil Young listening night. I'm sure a lot of people did. His streams probably went way up. I definitely enjoyed being able to listen to the Harvest Moon, some of the old Cortez the Killer. I miss those songs after all these years. So I was glad to have him back.
Yeah, and I think the sound quality argument is minimal. It's pretty negligible. It sounds fine to me in my earbuds.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree.
all right, let's get on to the new stuff.
Okay,
Band that we've been enjoying a lot in the last few months. Here's Lawrence.
yeah, their song "The Guy I Used to Be." Don't get me wrong, I really liked it. There's something endearing about it, but it is really cheesy, and
Oh
in
yeah,
the best
high
kind of
quality.
way. It kind of sounds like almost a Billy Ocean when the going gets tough, but also I expect it to be a theme to a rival sitcom for Who's the Boss in the 1980s,
Completely see it.
about a guy changing his life, leaving the city behind, and learning to be a normal person in the suburbs, the guy I used to be. And the key change is where the magic lays in this. But I've got to say
Oh yeah.
this: if I could ever have new, and I don't want covers, I want brand new schoolhouse rock music, I want Lawrence to perform it. I want Gracie and Clyde. Is that his name?
Yeah, Clyde.
Yeah.
His voice is perfect for that.
Yeah. I want them to do new schoolhouse rock.
So we have found this with Lawrence. Album versions of their songs are good, but when they play live, without all the usual studio polish, their songs take on a different life. And those are the versions both of us, I think, prefer, and we seek those out. I'd much rather hunt down versions of them playing live than listen to the album versions.
I think they have a really cool energy when they're playing live.
They do.
Yeah, it's easy to pick that up when you actually see them performing it. They love to perform. They have some really cool artistry. And it's not like camera tricks. It's not anything crazy, but there's a video that we shared with each other where they performed in the tour bus. And it's really
Yeah.
cool to see them each lying kind of in their own bunk and recording
Hmm.
and playing their parts. And then Gracie comes out of the bunk and she's singing, and you're just imagining, how are they recording this? But it's live. It's not.
Yeah. Because they're thinking it out. They're planning it and they have to rehearse it
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
over and over to get it as tight as it sounded. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Then Indie Matt found a gem medium build. It's mostly a moody album. It's called Country. It's not too heavy. Some, but songs titled "Crying Over You" and "Knowing You Exist" would lead you down that road just by the name alone. I fully expected Jim to not like this, especially if you only taken a song or two. Stick Around is the song that pulled me in and made me do just that. The horns made it stand out. It was definitely the most unique song on the album. It's got a really slick groove. It opened the rest of it to me, and it worked because I had it on repeat and it swung the rest of the album back around, and everything else kind of fell in line after that. Maybe most people don't do that, start listening to the last song. I think you had me do that with another album that it just didn't click with me. And you're right. Sometimes album sequencing really does help.
Yeah. Yep.
But start with that last song, stick around, and then let it roll back to Beach Chair. It's a good album for a mellow mood. Good rainy day album.
I'm not going to say anything yet. I've left these notes blank on purpose because I want you to talk
Good.
about your next album.
Unpeople. So last month, if you remember, I did some complaining that it's so hard to find good metal that I can connect to. And then the very next day, here comes Unpeople, because I got a new metal playlist I check out, and it came on and it stuck out right away because a lot of a lot of metal just kind of sounds the same in my ear, but right away going numb. The guitar sound and the style was different. It was a little mellower. The dude was, straight singing. But then the song kept traveling, and I was guessing the whole time. It's like, where are they going with this? Because they wove together screaming and grumbling, then just singing, chilling out, and then dropping the hammer. There's a really great groove in the bridge. They reminded us both of Faith No More, how they would build songs and how they would just travel around, but without sounding like Faith No More.
Okay, so the reason why I didn't say anything earlier with medium build is because I actually liked medium build more than Unpeople.
I can see that. Yeah,
That probably surprises you.
a little bit.
We did chat about Unpeople, and you sent me a link to them, and straight away I went back to you and said, "Oh, this kind of sounds like Faith No More," and you were like, "Thank
Mhm.
you. I heard this too." You were happy that
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything.
yeah, it is really cool. My problem with Unpeople is I really like that first song you sent to me. As I dug a little bit into some of their other music, it got a little too new metal for me in some areas.
Yes. Yep.
And I think that there are some songs that you brought up there, like, Going Numb, that stuck out. And that was a really cool song, but everything just didn't have that same feel. And I felt some of it, maybe they're one of those bands we'll get to hear more of down the road. And there'll be more music that comes from them that goes in that direction we really like. But you can tell some members of that band definitely listened to, some 2010s new metal or 2000s, and that's they're influencing it. Medium build, it's like you're right, it's moody, but it's not too heavy. And I really kind of liked the the feel of the album. And I think because you started me on that song, Stick Around, you did the right thing. I didn't start on anything else but that first. And I think I probably didn't do it intentionally, rolled it back around, but I probably listened to Stick Around first and then said, okay, Matt's had this song come to me. I'm going to go and start the album from the beginning. And so I kind of unintentionally listened to it that way.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And it was good. It was really good. I enjoyed it.
And then we keep getting these teasers for a Talking Heads tribute album. I wish they just released the damn thing already because these songs are good. I was surprised at how good the Paramore cover of Burning Down the House was. I didn't see them really doing this at all, but really pleasantly surprised. Girl in Red's version of Girlfriend is Better is probably my favorite. You can either try and make a song your own or remain faithful to that original. We've had that argument in our covers episode. And I'm really glad they've been pretty faithful. The heads are so stylistic. It may be jarring to hear the songs drastically reformed. It was probably more fun for them to go into the studio as well and maybe pretend to be the talking heads for a little while.
And how much is it paying back that respect when David Byrne covers your song because he liked your cover of his song? So you're right, Paramore, they did a great job covering Burning Down the House. David Byrne on Record Store Day released his cover of Paramore's Hard Times. You could actually buy it was a 12-inch disc and it had Paramore's version of Burning Down the House on one side and David Byrne's version of Hard Times on the other. And it was really cool. It was David Byrne did his own kind of take on their song. I think sometimes when bands get covered by another artist who's really good, then you understand why that's really good songwriting. And I've been trying to point out Paramore a little bit more and more on this show. I mean, I'm sure people are still angry at me for the last episode where I chose Haley Williams as the front person of my dream band that I built. But I really see a lot of talent in Paramore, and it's really cool to see David Byrne recognize that talent and pay tribute back to them. So, yeah, we'll have that song. We'll have
I,
both of them on the playlist for people to listen to.
yeah, I agree. Those are really good songs. Caleb Landry Drones. I don't know if you checked that one out. My listening was all over the place. This is kind of like for the new wave and punk fan in me. There is a delightful level of chaos here. It's kind of like on People in that the songs travel. They kept me guessing as to where's he going with this. The opening guitar riff on it's your favorite song. That's the title of the song. I'm not telling you it's your favorite song. It doesn't sound like there's going to be horns or strings, but man, there they are. What I like most about this, it's the opposite of the Taylor Swift. Each song sounded like its own thought. He said what he wanted to in one, boom, moved on to the next. Yet the song still, they felt like they belonged together. Everything had a really good connection to it. And he does a spot on John Lennon on Spotify. Very Beatles with a splash of ELO with those strings. Actually, there's quite a few instances where you realize he's a Beatles fan.
Yeah, I really liked the Beatles' influence on it. It was a lot of fun. And it's one of those albums that really kind of threw me off because how it starts off with that song with the horns coming in, like you said, you don't expect this to fit, but it does. But the variety of sound from song to song, like you've just said, it was really cool to not have an album where everything was just one style. But hearing the Beatles'
Yeah.
influence is always welcome to you and I.
Oh, yeah.
So there was this band called The Ghost Club, and I don't think many people have heard about it. They have kind of an 80s synth 2000s indie rock feel. This album that they released is more of one of those harm no one background albums, but how they wound up on my radar is pretty cool. So I enjoyed seeing they had an album out and getting to talk about this. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was just browsing Reddit. Every once in a while, I go to Reddit Music and read what was new, what was happening. And I came across a post from a band asking how they could get more views for their music video and exposure they had on YouTube. They posted a link to this cool video and a song called Same Graves. I liked it. I thought it was a cool song, so I added it to my mega playlist of music. And I think that Reddit post was actually genius. I don't know if they planted it or not because that didn't seem like a plan. It seemed very sincere and honest. But now that song has over 11 million plays on Spotify. And I think the video was 1.2 million on YouTube.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
So it's cool to see a band succeed like this without the need of a big label pushing them. People just came together and gave them support.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of Reddit.
No, no, not at all.
So as you're saying at the beginning there about their kind of 80s influence sound,
Yeah.
part of the 80s sound that we're getting more is the return of the saxophone and horns in general.
Yep.
You know, there's always going to be junk to complain about. There's also music out there like this, and you're glad you get to share it with people. And they traveled a little bit too. Like the first three songs, they kind of had that same feel. And then they went more into kind of a straightforward alt rock, but then they came back around to that 80s
Yep.
feel a little
Yep.
bit towards the end.
Yeah. Cool band.
Again, my listening's all over the place this month, and I'm going to start in with some country which was completely unexpected, with Charlie Crockett's $10 Cowboy, the album I didn't know I needed, but now it's the one that I want. It worked to complain. I got some country. Maybe I'll whine about rap and we'll get some next month. I've been reading some opinions on the cesspool called the internet. Here we go again, Reddit. There's a level of that there. There appear to be two camps, right? Those that really dig what he's doing, then you got the group that calls all those people hipster doofuses. Being the resident skeptic on the show, at least I thought it was until lately, Jim seems to be trying to take that crown from me. I get where the detractors are coming from. Charlie has a distinct appearance, and his music, it harkens back to a more classic sound of country music that we really like. Somehow that makes people think it's an act or it's, less authentic. I don't give a shit. This is a great album. The older sound comes from how his voice is recorded, and it's a baritone. It's a pretty deep voice. Yet it's country, but I also get yeah, it's country, but I also get bits of soul. Like I'm getting tired again. Excuse him for being a sharp dresser. He has an appearance, and maybe this is authentic and this is what he likes. Dude's from Texas, Sorry, he's not wearing pajamas like a lot of people do.
I really like this album. I hear a little bit of Hank Williams in what he's doing.
Yeah. And that's what people are kind of ripping him for a little bit because they think it may be an act. It's like, no, I think this is the real shit.
Yeah, but it's a sound. We talk about Steven Sanchez and the kind of
Yep.
ballroom music that he creates, and that's a sound and a style that comes from a time. And I have no problem with what Charlie Crockett's done here. It's really good. I'd rather still have people making music like Hank Williams or Buck Owens or any of those classical country stars were making. A little bit of Glenn Campbell in there. It's really cool to hear that. Authentic. I mean, only he knows. If they don't have
Yeah.
anything to say. Look, if he was trying to be Vanilla Ice 5 years ago and failed and then tried to do this, okay,
Yeah.
you'd have an argument.
Exactly.
But if he's come up in
Machine Gun
country,
Kelly.
yeah, if he's come up and trying to make music and this is what he's stuck to, good for him and finding his style and his groove with it.
Yep. And really, people are just going to believe what they want to believe, anyways.
They are.
So if you defend too much, it's just going to sound like you're trying to hide something.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring into the show the Zootons. The song that I really enjoyed from April is Creeping on the Dance Floor. I'd never heard of the Zootons until I moved to the UK. They originally wrote and performed the song Valerie, made famous by Amy Winehouse. The first time I heard their version of it, I thought somebody was covering Amy Winehouse. I teetered on the edge of putting this album in the opening segment because they've been around for a while, but this song and album is their first release in 16 years. So, in many ways, it sounds like it has the energy of a fresh new band. They brought in Niles Rodgers intentionally to produce the album, and you can immediately hear his influence on that title track, the rhythm guitar, the structure of it. But I think it oozes cool British rock and soul together. This song, Creeping on the Dance Floor, is one of those tunes that you can turn up while you're driving, tap your fingers on the steering wheel, and sing along to loudly.
Couldn't agree more. This was a really good. I was really surprised that the Zootons had a new album out because I think I think I brought one of their songs to our playlist once, and it was kind of an out of the blue ad.
Yeah, they're one of those bands that I don't think gets as much respect as they should. They're a lot better than people lend them to be. But I don't know what problems they've had. They wound up making this album after bubbling during COVID. They got together and created a bubble and they started working on an album again. And I do think that they had their experience of kind of riding the royalties, the wave of fame that came to the song Valerie. I was reading an interview with the lead singer, and he was asked if he had any resentment towards Amy Winehouse for that song becoming so popular when it didn't for them. And he said, absolutely not, because that song is in the hymn book of karaoke now. If you go to karaoke somewhere,
Yeah, you're right.
You're going to have Valerie, the Amy Winehouse version, but it's going to be there. And he said that he's very thankful that since that song was released, he's never had to have a day job. He's never had to go to work. He's made great royalties off of it. So I think, they probably didn't get the fame and fortune. They got the fortune from the royalties, the publishing of writing that song, but
Yeah,
it's
fame's a pain in the ass. Just give me the
yeah,
money.
but it slowed them down. So it's cool to see them kind of make this comeback, and the new album's really good. I hope they have some success with it.
I do too. So now our final thing that we're going to talk about, we usually have these little strokes of luck in what we're going to be talking about. And this one came out a little bit late. We covered comedy recently, and we found this very shortly after we were done
It
recording.
could almost be April Fools
Um,
on us.
yeah, and it's probably best that we didn't find it because we probably would have just spent the whole time talking about it and giggling about it like two little kids. But if I stumble across a song called "I Glued My Balls to My Butthole Again," I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna share it with Jim. At least for the public service announcement, Jim, don't do this. But the music was damn good in an old school R&B style, and now on my release radar, they're popping up. It seems like every week with a new one,
They are,
rubbing and tugging
yeah.
on my nips. You look like you could use a fucking lamp. The secrets your asshole keeps. The titles, they let you know what you're in for. I haven't heard a rap song yet, but it's all different styles: singer songwriter, R&B, pop, 80s synth. What was that one about daydreaming about taking a huge dump, then
Cutting it in half with your piss.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, then pulling up my pants, standing up and cutting the shit in half. It's like, oh my god, no, cutting the dump in half.
This is a nice revival of the junior high mentality
Oh
that
yeah,
we kind of grew up with. Right, if we brought this to the comedy show, we probably would have had a segment that, I mean, this is filthy music, but this
yeah,
is like Two Live Crew kind of filthy.
yeah, and it's done in a fun
It
way.
is done in a very fun way. I think the cool part about it is that the music's so familiar and the styles are so familiar and they're kind of old fashioned that you almost can't believe you're hearing this song that sounds like it's from, the 1930s about, I glued my balls to my butthole
Yeah,
again.
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on glue. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. Whatever it is, it's not alone. There's another one, Untraceable Records. I don't know if I'm supposed to say artist, but it's in that same vein. I gambled on a fart and lost. I mean, come on. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's childish, but it's gonna make me giggle. You know, that one that I got, the Untraceable Records, in my newest release radar, it got me wondering if there's not an AI involvement because there is a very similar sound. And if you do pay attention to it, it's not the cleanest audio. Like there's some heavy processing there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can hear that. And you brought that up to me and I wonder the same because it does sound like they may have just given AI this song title and then
Yeah.
AI went and, we put it in this style and it's come back and somebody out there who's producing this stuff is just laughing their ass off at everybody for listening to it.
Fool me once, man.
Yeah,
Shame
but
on you.
I'll keep enjoying these songs as they come along because you're right. They're a giggle. They're not something that you're going to listen to over and over and over again, but they are the kind of thing that you elbow something and be like, "Hey, you got to hear this."
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, I remember when I introduced one of my friends to Steel Panther. It's like, then he was hooked on it for a night.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you may not
but
revisit it.
that's like a
And this is gonna eventually hit a
but
wall.
that's like a comedy album. A lot of times you
Yeah,
listen to a comedy album the first time, you laugh your ass off, you tell everybody how great it is, but then you don't go back and listen to it 20 times. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
exactly. But some of the best parts of comedy is linking together words that you never would have thought should be linked together in the first place to form an idea. Like you look like you use a fucking lamp.
yeah, if I were 12 or 13 years old, I would be listening to this over and over again and singing
Yeah.
around and hoping my parents weren't catching me.
Yep. I don't know what you're listening to, Jim, but don't let your
But
mother
don't
hear
let
it.
your mother hear it. Yep. Well, hey, there we go. April wasn't so bad. I think we're gaining some steam as we get towards summer when we know the good music starts to come out. And when we record these shows, we're already a couple of days into May, and I've seen some new stuff come out already that we can be happy to talk about when we reach that. But before we do that, we are going to celebrate festival season. And I want to thank my friend Dean. We had Jake talk to us about doing a show based upon the supergroups and collaborations, and we enjoyed doing that. And my friend Dean brought up wouldn't it be cool if you did a show based upon building your own festival? And I thought, yeah, let's do that. So
Yeah, thanks for the heart attack, because it was hard enough coming up with a super group. Now I got to come up with a freaking festival.
I don't know if I've done you any favors, because I told Matt today, we're not going to have any rules with this. You can have 3 stages, have 8 acts per stage like you would.
Oh yeah. Parameters would help my head.
Your stage can be your stage, which is why. But the good part about this is you don't need to go search out new music. I think that's the best part. You can just dig into kind of your, this artist with that artist. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to come up with, because I think you might have some surprises for us as you get creative.
Yeah, but I'm going to try to stay away from the Led Zeppelins and the Beatles.
I think it'd be too easy to do something like that. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, yeah, I could have a classic rock stage, but I don't want this to just be something you could tune the radio on and hear 100%.
Yeah. And also, when I build a festival stage, I might think about the energy and how during the day at a festival, you kind of want that energy to rise and then plateau with who your headliner is going to be.
Yes, you want a good morning and then a siesta, and then you want it to crescendo again. Oh yeah, you want things to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's my turn to wrap the show up.
Take her away.
I will. We want to thank everybody for joining us for this episode of the Jam Yearbook. We reviewed the music we found in April, and if I pissed anybody off with my rants, I am absolutely not sorry. I stand by every single one of them. There's no argument from me with you.
Yeah, if you disagree, let us know on the Facebook page and we'll start an argument. I mean, a conversation.
Yes, and I'll be right and you'll be wrong. But no, it's been a lot of fun as always, Matt, and I look forward to building the festival with you, and let's get to exchanging some of the music that we're starting to hear in May, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun moving forward.
Yeah, there have already been a couple surprises for May that were quite pleasant. So yeah, it's going to be a great time.
All right. Hey, everybody. We will see you again. Matt, say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you here next time.
Peace, love, and podcast.